Good afternoon, everyone across North America. This is John Garmendi with Sony's Professional Solutions of America, welcoming you back to another in our series of Tech Tuesday webinars. For those of you who have been tuning in to this series since early 2020, we'd like to welcome you back. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to you as well. As you know, we've developed these webinars so that our customers, resellers, integrators, and consultants can stay informed and up to date on Sony's latest products and solutions, especially during this last year when many of us were not able to meet in person. In today's webinar entitled Why Smart Professional Displays Matter, we'll cover example use cases for pro displays. You'll learn about a wide range of custom settings that come standard with Sony Pro Bravia displays, and we'll also review some of the new features added to Android 10.0, including the expansion of startup services. Before we start, a few items of housekeeping. As in all of our webinars, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A, so please submit your questions via the in-event meeting chat panel. We'll also post links that are referenced to throughout the webinar in the chat panel, and we'll also post a link to our YouTube playlist where you can review all of our previously recorded Tech Tuesday sessions. Joining me today will be our product manager for Sony Professional Bravia Displays, Anthony Cianferrano. So I'll turn it over to Anthony now, and I'll join you all back here for Q&A.
Thank you, John. Let's go to the agenda slide so I can review the agenda real quick. So we'll talk about why Sony displays. I'll give you a quick look at our 2022 model lineup, and then we'll get into the meat of this presentation, which is really the Pro Mode operation. So from there, we're going to go into how to access Pro Mode and how to use it, including some usage examples and some how-to videos. And then we'll talk about the startup services, which is a submenu within the Pro settings menu that has some embedded apps that are very useful. I'll talk about those. And then finally, how to update the unit and make sure that we're using the latest software and the latest feature set. So I'll go ahead and get started here. This is a slide that you kind of got to read from the bottom up. We have the 3 series, which is the tuner models, which is a prefix of FWD. We have our mid-range or standard line, which is the BZ30J series. And then we have the high-end line, which consists of the BZ40H and the 100-inch BZ40J. But the ability to add our Pro Mode operation, the extended software that's available either through Sony or through our partners, the accessories and the partners that we have on the accessory side, and then our integration partners, we're able to address these target vertical markets and many more. But these are some of the key markets that we try to address. In this presentation, though, we're going to talk about Pro Mode and how we can use Pro Mode to address some of these vertical markets and the configurations that may be applicable in those cases. I want to quickly make a note, though. We had a kind of a significant change in 2021. The FWD tuner models no longer support Pro Mode. So anything prior to 21 with as a H at the end of the model, the last letter in the model number indicates the model year. And so 2020, we're good on Pro Mode operation, but as of 2021, any new models that are J at the end of the model number do not have Pro Mode. So I wanted to bring that up. Now let's look at our lineup. So I didn't include the FWD models in this lineup because it's not applicable to Pro Mode. So they're not shown here. What I'm showing here are the 2 series, the mid-range standard line, which consists of the BZ30J, and then the high-end line, which is the BZ35J, BZ40H, and BZ40J. Now, when we talk about Bravia and what are some of the sales points, there's many, but these are kind of three that we always talk about: our pro mode operation, our rich IP control, and our capability with mirroring with both Chromecast and Apple AirPlay built into the unit. So let's dig in more to pro mode and what that is and how we can use it. So on the BZ series, there's an application called the Pro Mode tool, and you can see it here on the apps bar on the home screen. So if you press home on the remote, you'll go to the home screen, which is what's shown here, and then you'll find this icon for the Pro Mode tool. And this allows you to get into the Pro settings menu, and it also allows you to go back and forth between the different modes, which is shown on here. I'll show you once we open that icon, you'll see this dialog where you have the three modes to choose from. We're already in normal mode, so that's why the check mark is there. But if we want to access Pro Settings mode, you move the cursor to the right, and it'll highlight that setting, and we open it up. Now, the Pro Settings mode is the in between the normal mode and the pro mode. So from pro settings mode, you can either go back to normal mode. In that case, none of the settings that you've selected in the pro settings menu will be activated. Or you can go and start pro mode. So you can go either way from the pro settings mode. You can start normal mode, or you can go and activate the settings that you've selected by running pro mode. Now, that Pro Mode icon by default, the Pro Mode tool icon by default gets hidden whenever you start Pro Mode. So you can enable it in the Pro Settings menu to be visible on the Pro Mode while you're in Pro Mode. Or you can use this key sequence. This key sequence on the IR remote control always works. It's the info button, mute, volume plus home. That'll work always, whether you've locked pro mode or you're in the pro mode operation, this key sequence will always work. So going back to the Pro Settings menu. Once you've activated Pro Settings, you'll see the banner at the top that lets you know that you're in the Pro Settings mode. And then you get to that menu by going to the normal settings icon, which is the gearbox in the upper right. What's different though is you'll see this menu. This menu is normally not shown when in normal mode, but once Pro Settings are in process, you have access to this additional menu. And then once you select the settings that you want, on the right-hand side are all the available settings, not all of them, but the ones that I've captured on the screenshot are shown on the right-hand side. And what's selected here is PC input optimization. So what I wanted to point out about this is that there's additional detail here that helps you understand what this setting is going to do. So there's an explanation of each setting item. In this case, it's the PC input optimization that's being discussed. It also gives a QR code that links to our Knowledge Center where you can find additional information. And it also gives a suggestion of what target segment this particular setting may be used in. So it's a very helpful graphical user interface that helps describe some of these settings. Prior to having this, you kind of had to know what these settings were doing, and so some of them were not so intuitive, and this really helps. So this is a look at the menu tree of the Pro Settings. The menu, you can see that there's quite a few settings that we can access and use. They're categorized into actions, settings, initial source and volume, and function restrictions. So this next series of slides is going to incorporate some how-to videos. And the how-to videos are already on our Knowledge Center. We have this dedicated website for our BZ series called the Bravia Knowledge Center. You can see the link in the upper right to that. Underneath the guide section is where the how-to videos are. So I'm going to talk about some typical example configurations, and then we're going to run a video that shows how to set that up. Okay, so these are some of the Pro Mode usage examples. And once again, these are examples of what you may set up for these different types of applications. So in a corporate environment, a lot of customers want to use Wake Up on Signal. It's a very reliable way to detect whether there's a signal on HDMI or not. If you're using a video conferencing system, once that conferencing system comes up and sends a signal to the display will automatically come out of standby and turn on. And then once that signal goes away from HDMI, it'll go back to standby mode. So we're going to run a video now. Let's take a look on how to set this up.
Hi! In this video, I'll show you how to use Wake Up on Signal. When a PC or other device is connected to the display via HDMI, it automatically turns on the power to the display. You can switch the input to connected devices. You can also turn off the power automatically when you unplug the HDMI cable from a PC or other device. Utilizing this, you don't need to use a remote control to turn the power on or off. Within Pro Settings, select the function. Disable. The function is disabled. Always enabled. Automatically turns on the display and switches input when HDMI input is connected. Automatically turns off the display when HDMI input is disconnected. Input change only. Automatically turns on the display and switches input when the HDMI input is connected. Specified hours. Can specify the start, end time when the function is enabled. Connect the HDMI cable and the display turns on automatically. In this video, I showed how to use Wake Up on Signal. Please visit our Knowledge Center for technical information on Bravia 4K professional displays.
Okay, a couple of qualifications or corrections on the video we just watched. She referred to connecting and disconnecting the HDMI cable, and that's not necessary to physically disconnect and connect the cable. It detects whether there's signal on the cable or not. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. The other point I want to mention is that we also get auto input switching with that function. So it's called Wake on Signal, and that's exactly what it does, but it also supports input switching. So once a second input is applied, it'll switch automatically to that second input. Once that second input is gone, it'll revert back to the first input. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. Now in the education environment, here's another example of what we might want to use. Let's talk about initial and maximum volume. So we can set the display to always turn on with a specific volume level, and then we can restrict that volume level so that we don't disturb adjacent classrooms or in corporate adjacent meeting rooms. So now let's take a look at how to set that up.
Hello! In this video, I'll show how to set and restrict the initial volume on the display. If you set the initial volume, the volume returns to the designated volume when the display is on, regardless of the volume which the last user set. If you set the maximum volume, you can prevent the volume from being set too loud if required. In Pro Settings, select the function. Set the initial volume and maximum volume. So for example, set the initial volume to 20 and set the maximum to 40. You will see that under this condition, even if I try to turn the volume to maximum, it will not work. Here we have seen how to set the initial and maximum volume. Please visit our Knowledge Center for technical information on Bravia 4K professional displays.
Okay, so that was an example of one of the settings that you might want to use in education environment. It could be used in other environments as well. Again, these are just examples of how you can use the Pro Settings menu and the settings that are available to configure the display for certain behaviors. In a retail environment, we may want to set it so that it uses the lock function for the TV and the remote control. So there's a button on the display that can be locked out, or the IR remote control can be locked out. So let's take a look at this video that shows how to set that up.
Hello! In this video, I will show how to restrict unwanted use with the physical buttons on the remote and display. This can enable or disable buttons on the display or the remote control. For example, you can prohibit controlling signage displays in a shop by displaying buttons and remote control by customers. In Pro Settings, select this function. Then select an option. Display Control can enable or disable the button on the display. IR Remote Control can enable or disable the buttons on the IR remote control. Bluetooth Remote Control can enable or disable the buttons on the Bluetooth remote control. Here we have seen how to manage the physical controls. Please visit our Knowledge Center for technical information on Bravia 4K professional displays.
Okay, so now that we've set the display for the behaviors that we want, wouldn't it be nice if we can save those settings to a USB stick and then install them, import them into other displays in our installation? By doing this, we have a very uniform way of setting up the display so that they're very consistent. You don't have to worry that, the installer in one room set it up one way and the installer in another room has it set another way. So very uniform and consistent configuration can be done by the export and import function. And this next video, we'll take a look and show how that's done.
Hi! In this video, I will show you how to export Pro Settings for mass deployment. This will copy the current settings to a USB flash memory. The copied settings can easily be applied to other displays to shorten the installation time for multiple displays. You can also copy standard and professional settings at the same time. To begin with, insert the USB memory. Select the function. A notification will appear. Select OK to proceed. After export is done, setting files are stored in USB. Insert the USB memory with extracted data to the Bravia professional display. A notification will appear. Select Import to proceed and the import is finished. I have demonstrated how to export Pro Settings for quick setup of your deployment. Please visit our Knowledge Center for technical information on Bravia 4K professional displays.
So finally, we've seen how to set the display for certain behaviors, how to export those settings and import them into other like displays. And now we need to activate those settings. And so what we want to do is start Pro mode. Any of the things that we've set up in the Pro Settings menu don't take effect until we start Pro mode. So this next video is going to show how to start Pro mode, and we'll take a look and then come back to that more explanation.
Hi! This video will show you how to activate both Pro mode and Normal mode. This enters Pro mode from Pro settings mode. By using this function, you can use it to set up Pro mode, which will activate the settings specified in Pro settings mode. The display will restart automatically and switch to Pro mode. In the Pro settings, select the function. A notification appears. Select OK to proceed. Setting is now completed and the display will reboot and activate Pro mode. Next, I will introduce how to change to Normal mode. This enters Normal mode from Pro settings mode. In Normal mode, any special settings defined in the Pro settings mode will not be activated. The display will restart automatically and switch to Normal mode. Select the function. A notification appears. Select OK to proceed. Setting is now completed and the display will reboot and switch to Normal mode. Here I have shown you to activate both Pro mode and Normal mode. Please visit our Knowledge Center for technical information on Bravia 4K professional displays.
So those are the how-to videos that are in the guide section of the Bravia Knowledge Center. So those are just a few that are there. There's many more. They're all very well done and very easy to understand, especially with the demonstration part of the explanation as well. So I hope that you utilize those. If you have any questions about how to use the Pro Settings menu and the settings that are available there. Now, within the Pro Settings menu, there's a special menu, which is called Startup Services. And what it is several embedded applications that are available to use. And I'm going to talk about those in this next series of slides. So when you enter into the Pro Settings menu, you'll see the menu called Startup Services. And once you enter that menu, you'll see that there's several different embedded applications. One of the newer ones that was included in the latest software update is the support for Crestron XIO. So this is an application. Once again, it's embedded in the display. Once you select it, it will prompt you to install the app, which is what this view is showing you. And once you install the application, it will be visible on the home screen. So you can see the home screen view here. It shows all the installed apps on my display here. One of them is the XIO Cloud, which we just installed. So that's how you would configure the display to be available to the XIO Cloud system. Another one of the applications that is embedded is called Bravia Meeting Free. And once again, it's the same process. It'll prompt you to install, and then it'll activate. In the case of Bravia Meeting Free, it activates automatically. You don't have to open up an app to get to it. What Bravia Meeting Free does is it allows you to replace the home screen with a background image and some information that can be utilized to give the room name or the corporate name. That date and time can be displayed. It also supports the auto wake up and automatic input switching. So it's a way to customize your display for a meeting room environment and give some corporate identity or useful information on the screen instead of just a black or blank screen when you walk into the room. One of the examples of a use case of this is University of Central Florida. And we have a case study for that you can access with the link that'll be in the chat menu. But they didn't want to see the normal standby screen. They wanted to utilize the home screen for campus information. And so whenever the display is not being used, you see the campus information that they wanted to show. Whenever the students or the users would gather around the breakout area here and attach the signal to the HDMI breakout there, it would automatically switch to that signal and display the information from the source. Once they disconnected, of course, it would go back to the background image. Another one of the applications that's embedded is called multi-display. And multi-display is a way to configure a video wall. So there's two different modes in the multi-display function. There's the simple mode, which is the traditional configuration of 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, up to 5x5 arrangement. The other mode that you can access is called advanced mode, and that allows you to break out of that 2x2, 3x3 configuration and do a very unique arrangement of different display sizes. And that's what you see there. Now, I want to make a note that our displays are not intended specifically for video wall applications. And kind of to highlight that point, I put the bezel dimensions for our BZ40 series in the lower left corner there. So we don't have the ultra thin bezels, and they're not optimized for video walls, but it certainly can be done, and we have many customers that use it. There was just an install in California, I believe, that they used a 3x3 video wall, which was a very successful install. This is the way you would configure the system. It needs to have an HDMI distribution amplifier to send the same signal to each display. And then with the application, you assign which display gets what part of that image in the example here. Just a note of caution, if its content is copy protected, you have to make sure that the distribution amplifier passes the copy protection. Some do and some don't. So just a note for you to be aware of. Another application that's embedded is a web control user interface. This allows us to monitor and control the display via a web browser. So this is the view once you've enabled the web control UI. You'll see a view that's like this. There's several tabs on the left-hand side. The left image is showing the status tab. The right image is showing the control tab. So you can control the display through the web UI. You can check the status. You can also push software updates. You can access Pro Mode and do several different things with the web browser. So that's a very nice feature that's embedded in the unit. Now, we sometimes add features like the Crestron XIO, for example, was just recently added in the software update. So you want to make sure that your software is up to date because we add features from time to time. And there's two ways to do that with the Bravia. You can do it over the air, which is over the internet connection, or you can do it via USB install. So if you want to find out what the current version of your software is, you go to the apps, the home screen, the apps bar menu, and you'll see an icon that's indicated by the question mark. It says help is the question mark. That's this view that you see on the screen right now. On the lower left, you'll see the current version of the software, and it's called a package software, and that includes all the different software modules. That's the highest level of the software. And when we do an update, we're updating the package version. So that's where you would see what version it's currently at. And then if you select the system software update, it will go out and look to see if there's a new software update available for the display. If there is, it'll prompt you to install it. If there isn't, it'll tell you that your software is up to date. The other way to do it is via USB. Once again, I'm going to refer back to the Bravia Knowledge Center and the resource section where you'll find specifications, CAD drawings, and other useful information in the resources page. One of those resources are the firmware updates. So you see I have the BZ48 selected, and the latest firmware updates are shown there, as well as a release notes that says what was added or changed in that version. So you simply download to your PC, copy that to USB, and install that into the display. So that's how you would update the units to the latest software. And that's the end of my presentation. So I'll turn it back to John for questions and answers.
Thanks, Anthony. Great job as always. And we do have quite a few questions. So let's jump right in. Edward asks, with the web control UI, can you control the information being displayed?
You cannot change the view if that's what's being asked. There's different tabs on the left-hand side that let you select different functions, but you can't change the view within those. Like, for
Okay.
example, on the status page, you can't hide part of the status information if that's what's being asked.
Okay. There is also a follow-up question from Edward here. Will the firmware updates affect the preset display settings?
No, they will not.
Okay. A question from Teresa asking, how do I know which models support the Pro mode?
So, as I mentioned in the beginning, in 2021, from 2021 model year onward, the models do not support Pro mode. And that's specific to our tuner series. And the tuner series is indicated by the prefix FWD. If it's an FWD model and it's model year 2021 or above, the J in the last letter of the model name is the 2021 model year, then it does not support Pro mode. All of the BZ series, the dedicated B2B models, support Pro mode.
Okay, great. Thanks. There's a question from Manish who asks, when in Pro mode and not in Pro settings mode, how do you go back to the normal mode?
So there's two ways to do that. You can enable the Pro mode tool to be visible on the apps bar when in Pro mode. If that's the case, you just select the Pro mode tool and go back and select normal mode and go back to normal mode. The other way to do it is with the key sequence. If you don't want the Pro mode tool on the apps menu and be visible to the users, it's by default hidden. And then you use the key sequence on the IR remote control, which is the info, volume, up, mute, home.
Okay, we have a question from Anthony, and I think this goes back to Wake on Signal, although I'm not sure. But he asks, is it actually the signal input and not the CEC data?
Correct. It detects the TMDS clock. TMDS is the type of signal that HDMI uses, and there's a clock signal and detects the clock signal. So it's not CEC. CEC is different. And in fact, CEC is somewhat unreliable, and Wake on Signal is just a very reliable way of switching the display to the appropriate signal or having it come on from standby and back to standby when the signal's gone. CEC can be a little flaky sometimes.
Okay, question from, well, there's actually two questions from Jay. So can the same Pro settings be shared across all sizes? I'm sorry, that's actually Ken's question. Can the same pro settings be shared across all sizes?
Yes, within the same series. So, for example, the BZ40H series, there's four different sizes. We can go from a 55 BZ40H to a 75 BZ40H. That's no problem. You can't go from a different series, though. We can't go from BZ40H to a BZ30J, for example. That wouldn't be supported.
Okay,
Size doesn't matter in this case.
very good. Now the question from Jay. He says he's not clear on what enabled and input, and he's not clear on enabled and input change only.
So that was with respect to wake on signal. So, for example, if you had a common source that was displayed on the screen all the time, and you wanted to add a second source, like from a breakout box on the desk, you can. That would be an input change only, right? A new signal appeared, you'd want it to automatically turn on. And the example would be with the video conferencing system. If the VC system isn't being used, therefore there's no signal to the display and it's in standby. But if you want to go into the room and connect your PC to a breakout box on the table, that would be an input switch only that would come out of standby and turn on.
And Jay has a follow up question. He asks, what happens if two inputs are being used and both are active?
Last one in is what gets displayed. So it obviously isn't going to display both at the same time, but the last one that was detected would be the one that's displayed.
Okay. Question from Spike. So stand by 1 second. Let me just scroll down to the question. Spike asks, is there a Sony software that can manage a group of 10 plus Bravia displays on a network rather than individual management of each display?
There is a software that's in development right now called Bravia Updater, and it does allow you to monitor the display status in groups, but we haven't released it yet. So we may have something very soon that will do what your customer's asking for. But as of now, we just have the beta version of the Bravia Updater software.
Another one from Manesh. Can you access IP settings in Pro mode? And if not, why not?
The IP settings menu is in the normal menu. Once you've started Pro mode, the normal menu is hidden, so you cannot access it through if you're in Pro mode operation. So you would have to manage IP settings in the normal settings menu. So yeah, I think I understand where the question's coming from. You would have to back out of Pro mode, which would be inconvenient, perhaps. But if you're trying to set up the display on the network, I would recommend that you do that. Do all the normal setting things first, then set up your Pro settings items, and then start Pro mode. That would be the proper procedure to set the display up for both the normal settings, which is where the IP addresses are, and the Pro settings. Second.
So, question from Alan. He asks, does the auto software update feature work when operating in Pro mode?
No, it does not, and that's kind of can be considered a benefit. If you're in Pro mode, the auto software update is not enabled. It's normally by default it's off. If it were selected to be on, you would get a prompt to update the software if it was connected to the internet. However, once in pro mode, that functionality is not working. So um, all the displays would remain at the same software level. And it's a good way to control that if you don't want the software to be updated. In the case of digital signage software that's running on the SoC, you may not want to update the software. So it's a good thing to run in Pro mode. That way you can keep all the software at the same level.
Okay, and Mark asks, is the normal settings menu hidden when in Pro mode operation?
Yes, it is. And that's can be considered a feature and advantage as well. So once you've set Pro mode to Pro mode operation, the normal settings menu is hidden. The Pro mode tool is off the apps bar unless you previously enabled it, and you're pretty much locked out of the settings menus.
And I think this is a related question from Andy. He asks, he installed one of the applications in the Pro settings startup service, but now he can't find the application. And how can I access the application after I install it?
That's kind of a common question. The apps bar has a plus symbol at the far right. And if you open up that plus symbol, it'll list all the installed apps. And all you need to do is add it to the apps bar. So select the plus symbol, find the app that you're interested in putting on the apps bar to be visible, and just select it. And then from that point on, it'll be visible on the apps bar.
Okay, we have a follow up question. We actually have two follow up questions from Spike. I'll handle the first one. It says, will this webinar be available for review again later? And yeah, generally we post these to our YouTube playlist no later than the following Monday. So by next Monday, this should be up on our YouTube site, which we've already put the link to our playlist in the chat. So you should have that there. And then the second follow up question from Spike, he asks, does the IP settings menu allow both assignment of static IP addresses or via DHCP service?
Yes, you can select either one.
Great. Jay asks, and I think you spoke about this a bit, but Jay asks, can the displays be managed via Crestron XIO?
Yes, I'm not a Crestron XIO expert, but they can be managed to some extent over the cloud service. Yes.
Jay also asks a follow up question. Is there an API available so the displays can be managed by a third party management tool?
We're working on a solution for that. Currently, there's not a good way to do that, but we're working on a solution for that. So stay tuned.
Okay, Aaron has a question. Does the unit support a unique certificate that can be used to lock all configurations? This would allow technicians to make configuration changes, but no one who doesn't have the specific certificate would be allowed to do so.
So there is a pin that can be assigned to Pro settings. So if you try to access Pro settings menu, assuming you're in Pro mode and all the menus are locked at this point, and you try to get into the Pro settings menu by the key sequence or by the Pro mode tool, you can assign a pin to appear at that point. That, in a way, is a certificate that allows only certain access to those settings. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you, Anthony. We have our last question here. It's from Edward. And he asks, if I wanted to use a Pro Series to display a daily schedule for a classroom, classroom locations, would I still need a third-party system to control the application being displayed?
I'm not really clear on the question. Um, yeah,
So
typically the change of content is something that happens at the application level. So depending on the application that you're using, if you want to change the content, it would be a function of that application. We have a simple signage player that runs off a USB. You can set it for a schedule. If you already know what the schedule is going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for example, you can program that signage player to change the content accordingly. But again, that's a function of the signage player, not a function of the Bravia display.
okay, yeah, and Jay jumped in and says he's asking about digital signage. Yeah, so we do have the simple signage player. We also have we also have a number of alliance partners that we work together with who have signage applications that will run natively on our system on a chip, our Android-based SoC, and we can pop a link into the chat with our alliance partner page as well. Uh, Edward asks, and this we're right up against time, so this will be our last question. Can you program the signage player remotely?
On different systems, yes. If you're referring to the USB Bravia signage free that I was talking about, then the answer is no. It's a USB device. So you use the IR remote control on the display to configure it. The other signage applications that John was mentioning that runs on the SoC, then of course those can be managed and controlled remotely.
Fantastic. Well, this was a great session, Anthony. As always, we really appreciate everyone's questions. We ask you all to please stay engaged and join us again in 2 weeks on August 30th, where our next Tech Tuesday webinar will be entitled Elevating Your Hybrid Production Using Sony AI. So we look forward to getting together with you in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, we ask that you all stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great rest of the day. Thanks all.
Thank you.